Some people say money can't buy happiness, that material things don't matter, that family should always come first, no matter what. I believed all of that, but I also believed that I could give my family a better life, that I could make their sacrifices worth something, that working hard enough would eventually pay off. I was wrong about a lot of things, but that night, staring down the barrel of a gun, I learned what really matters. My name is Arjun, and I'm 21 years old. This is the story of the night I thought I'd never see my parents again, and how it changed everything I thought I knew about life. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back to when I was just a kid who couldn't sit still in class. I was never good at studying, not because I was stupid, but because I just couldn't focus. I'd sit in class and my mind would wander. I'd look out the window and think about 1,000 things that had nothing to do with math or science or history. My teachers would tell my parents I had potential, that I was smart enough, I just needed to apply myself. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to make it work. My parents never gave up on me, though. They believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I have 3 siblings, 2 older sisters and 1 younger brother. All of them went to local schools near our house. Good schools, but nothing fancy. They did well enough. They studied, they got decent grades. They made our parents proud. But I was different. I was the one who struggled, the one who needed extra help, the one who needed a different environment. So, my parents made a decision that changed my life. They sent me to boarding school, not just any boarding school, an expensive one, the kind of place where rich kids go, where the facilities are amazing and the teachers actually care about each student. My school fees were probably 10 times what my siblings' fees were, maybe more. I didn't know the exact numbers, but I knew it was a lot, more than my parents could really afford. But they did it anyway. They worked extra hours. They saved every rupee they could. They sacrificed things they wanted, things they needed, just to give me that opportunity. I was the only one of my siblings who got to go to a fancy boarding school. And I felt that weight every single day. I had to make it worth it. I had to prove they were right to believe in me. I had to be the good son they deserved. In my culture, we don't really say, "I love you" to our parents. It's not something we do. It feels awkward, uncomfortable, almost wrong. Love is something you show, not something you say. So I showed it through my actions, through studying harder, through making them proud, through being respectful and obedient and trying my best. Boarding school helped. The structure, the discipline, the smaller classes. I actually started doing better. Not great, but better. Good enough to graduate. Good enough to think about college. That's when I started. Dreaming bigger. I wanted to study abroad. I wanted to go to a foreign country, get a degree, build a career, make real money. I wanted to give my parents everything they'd ever wanted. A comfortable house. No more financial stress. The ability to retire and actually enjoy their lives. When I told them about my plan, they weren't happy. My mother cried. My father looked worried. They didn't want me to go so far away. They wanted me to study somewhere close. Same country, or at least a nearby country. Somewhere I could come home for festivals. Somewhere I could visit if they needed me. But I was determined. I argued and explained and promised that this was the right choice. That I'd make it work. That I'd make them proud. Eventually they agreed, and somehow they found the money to send me to Australia. I still remember the day I left. My mother couldn't stop crying. My father tried to stay strong, but I could see his eyes were wet too. My siblings hugged me and told me to take care of myself. And I remember the look on my parents' faces underneath the sadness. Pride. They were proud of me. Proud that their son was going abroad to study. Proud that I was chasing my dreams. I promised myself I wouldn't let them down. When I arrived in Australia, everything felt overwhelming. The people looked different, they talked different. The culture was nothing like home. The food was strange. Even the air smelled different. I was alone in a way I'd never been before. No family, no friends. Just me and a tiny room in a shared apartment with 3 other international students I'd never met. The first few weeks were the hardest. I was homesick. I missed my mom's cooking. I missed hearing my language spoken around me. I missed everything familiar. But I couldn't give up. I'd come too far. My parents had sacrificed too much. So I focused on what I could control. I enrolled in my classes. I studied hard. And I started looking for work. International students in Australia are allowed to work 20 hours per week during the semester. I needed every hour I could get. My first job was at a cleaning company, just 2 days a week, 3 hours each day. I'd clean office buildings after everyone went home, empty trash cans, vacuum floors, wipe down desks. It wasn't glamorous, but it was money. 6 hours a week at minimum wage. It wasn't enough to live on, but it was a start. Then I found another job, a cashier position at a liquor store. The pay was better, and they needed someone for evening shifts. Perfect for a student. Between my 2 jobs and my classes, I was busy all the time, but I didn't mind. Every dollar I earned was a dollar I didn't have to ask my parents for. Every week I could pay my rent and buy groceries was a small victory. I even started sending money home. Not much, just a little bit here and there. But I wanted my parents to know I was okay, that I was managing, that their investment in me was paying off. My mom would call me every week. Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping enough? Don't work too hard. And I'd lie. I'd tell her everything was fine. That school was easy. That work was no problem. That I had plenty of time to rest. I didn't tell her that some weeks I worked 20 hours at one job and another 20 at the other, that I'd do homework between customers at the liquor store, that sometimes I'd pull all-nighters, working a shift and then going straight to class. I didn't tell her because I didn't want her to worry, and because I knew if I told her how hard it was, she'd tell me to come home. And I couldn't do that. Not yet. Not until I'd made something of myself. The work was exhausting, but it was worth it. Every time I sent money home, every time I heard the pride in my father's voice when he asked about my studies, it made everything worth it. I'd been in Australia for almost a year when everything changed. It was a Tuesday night. I was working the evening shift at the liquor store. We closed at 10:30, and it was about 10 o'clock, just half an hour left. The store was quiet. We'd had a few customers earlier in the evening, but the last hour had been dead. I was behind the counter, going through the day's accounts, counting money, checking receipts. I was thinking about my assignment that was due the next day. I'd have to stay up late to finish it, but that was normal for me. Then the door opened. I looked up and saw 4 people walk in. All men, probably in their 20s or early 30s. They were dressed casually. Hoodies, jeans, nothing that stood out. "Welcome," I said automatically, giving them the customer service smile I'd practiced 1,000 times. But something felt wrong immediately. They didn't look around the store, they didn't browse the shelves, they didn't say anything back to me. They just walked straight toward the counter, fast, purposeful. My heart started beating faster. Some instinct was screaming at me that something was very wrong. Before I could react, before I could even process what was happening, they were behind the counter with me. One of them pulled out a gun. I froze. Completely froze. Every muscle in my body locked up. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just stared at the gun. It was black and metallic and pointed right at me. The man holding it wasn't even looking at me directly. He was looking at the register, at the cash drawer. "Open it," he said. His voice was calm, almost bored. I couldn't make my hands move. I just stood there, staring. "Open the fucking register," he said again, louder this time. The gun moved closer to my face. My hands started shaking so badly I could barely press the buttons. I managed to open the register. The drawer popped out with a ding that sounded way too cheerful for what was happening. One of the other men started grabbing the money. Bills, coins, everything. He stuffed it all into a bag. The whole time, the gun stayed pointed at me. My mind went completely blank. I wasn't thinking about the money. I wasn't thinking about the store. I wasn't even really scared yet. I was just frozen. And then, suddenly, one thought cut through everything else. I'm going to die here. That thought hit me like a physical blow. My knees almost gave out. I'm going to die here, in this store, in a foreign country, thousands of miles from home. And my parents will never know what happened to me. They'll just get a call. "Your son was killed in a robbery." I saw my mother's face, so clearly, like she was standing right in front of me. I saw the way she smiled when I video called her. I saw the way her eyes lit up when I told her about my good grades. I saw my father. The way he pretended not to be emotional when I left. The way his voice cracked a little when he told me to take care of myself. I thought about my siblings. My older sisters who used to help me with homework. My little brother who looked up to me. I thought about how I'd never see any of them again. Tears started running down my face. I didn't even realize I was crying until I felt the wetness on my cheeks. I wasn't making any sound. I was just standing there, frozen, with tears pouring down my face, while these men robbed the store. All I could think was, I never told them I loved them. I never said the words. I'd shown it through my actions, or at least I tried to, but I never actually said it. And now I'd never get the chance. I thought about all the sacrifices my parents made for me. The boarding school fees, the money to send me abroad, all those extra hours they worked, and this was how it ended. Me, dead in a liquor store, having never accomplished anything, having never given them the life I promised, having never even said thank you properly. I wasn't even scared of dying, really. I was scared of leaving them, of breaking their hearts, of being another burden instead of the success story I was supposed to be. The man with the gun said something to the others. I didn't hear what it was. My ears were ringing. Then, suddenly, they were moving, running toward the door, taking the money with them, and then they were gone. I stood there for a long time, maybe a minute, maybe 10 minutes, I don't know. My legs gave out and I slid down to the floor, my back against the counter. I was still crying, but now I was gasping for air too. Big, gulping breaths that I couldn't control. I was alive. They didn't shoot me. They just took the money and left. I was alive. Eventually, I managed to call the police. They came quickly, asked me questions I could barely answer, looked at the security footage, told me I did the right thing by not fighting back. A paramedic checked me over. "You're in shock," she said gently. "That's normal. Do you have anyone you can call? Family? Friends?" I shook my head. My family was on the other side of the world. My friends, the few I had, wouldn't understand. How could they? The store owner arrived. He was more concerned about the money than about me. He asked questions about what happened, about how much was taken, about why I didn't press the silent alarm. I just stared at him. Did he not understand that I thought I was going to die? The police offered to drive me home. I said no. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to walk, to feel my legs working, to prove to myself I was still alive. I walked back to my apartment in a daze. It was late, past midnight. The streets were quiet. Every shadow made me jump. Every sound made my heart race. When I got to my room, I locked the door. Then I checked it 3 times to make sure it was really locked. I sat on my bed and just stared at the wall. I was supposed to finish my assignment. I was supposed to go to class in the morning. I was supposed to call my parents like I did every week. But I couldn't do any of it. I just sat there replaying everything in my head. The gun, the fear, the certainty that I was going to die. I didn't sleep that night, or the next night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the gun. But I went to class. I went to my other job. I kept going through the motions because I didn't know what else to do. A few days later, my mom called for our weekly video chat. "Hi, Beta," she said, her face filling the screen. She was smiling. "How are you? You look tired." "I'm fine, Ma," I said, forcing a smile. "Just busy with assignments." "You're working too hard," she said, frowning. "You need to rest." "I'm okay, really. How are you? How's everyone at home?" And we talked like we always did, about my classes, about my siblings, about the weather, about nothing and everything. I didn't tell her about the robbery. I didn't tell her I'd had a gun pointed at my face. I didn't tell her I thought I was going to die. I just smiled and talked and pretended everything was fine, because what would telling her accomplish? It would just make her worry. It would make her scared for me. It might even make her ask me to come home. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't give up. Not after everything they'd sacrificed. My father got on the call. "How's the job going?" he asked. "Good, Dad, really good." "Another lie. We're proud of you," he said. His voice was warm. "You're doing so well." Those words should have made me happy. Instead, they made me want to cry. I wasn't doing well. I was barely holding it together. I was working myself to exhaustion. I'd almost been killed, and I was lying to the people I loved most. But I just smiled and said thank you. After the call ended, I sat in my room and finally let myself break down. I cried harder than I had since the robbery. Big, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I was so tired. Tired of working all the time. Tired of pretending I was okay. Tired of being so far from home. But I couldn't stop. Because stopping meant admitting defeat. Stopping meant all their sacrifices were for nothing. The weeks after the robbery were the hardest of my life. I quit my job at the liquor store. I couldn't go back. Just thinking about it made me start shaking. I picked up more hours at my cleaning job instead. It paid less, but at least I didn't have to deal with customers. At least I could work alone, late at night, when buildings were empty. My grades started slipping. I'd sit in class but not hear anything the professor was saying. I'd stare at my textbooks but the words wouldn't make sense. I was running on empty, working, studying, pretending, always pretending. My roommates noticed something was wrong. "You okay, man?" one of them asked. "You seem different." "I'm fine," I said. Always the same answer. "Just tired." I stopped going out, stopped accepting invitations to hang out. I went to work, went to class, went home. That was it. I was lonely, but I couldn't explain to anyone what I was going through. How could I make them understand? That I saw my death in that moment, that I realized how far I was from everything that mattered, that I was killing myself trying to make my parents proud, but I didn't even know if it was worth it anymore. Time passed, slowly, painfully, but it passed. The nightmares about the robbery started to fade. I could close my eyes without seeing the gun. I could walk down the street without jumping at every sound, but something had changed in me, something fundamental. I started questioning everything. Why was I here? What was I really trying to prove? Was this what my parents wanted, or was it what I thought they wanted? I thought about calling them and telling them the truth. About the robbery, about how hard things were, about how lonely I felt. But I never did, because I knew what would happen. They'd worry. They'd probably tell me to come home, and I'd feel like I failed them. So I kept going. I got my grades back up. I found a safer job at a grocery store. I kept sending money home when I could, and I kept smiling during our video calls. Kept pretending everything was perfect. My mother would say how proud she was. My father would tell relatives about his son studying in Australia. My siblings would tell their friends about their successful brother abroad, and I'd feel this weird mix of pride and guilt and exhaustion. One day, about 6 months after the robbery, something shifted. I was at work, stocking shelves, and my phone rang. It was my father. He never called outside our scheduled time. My heart jumped into my throat. Something was wrong. "Dad, is everything okay?" Yes, everything is fine," he said quickly. "I just wanted to call you." "Why? What happened?" "Nothing happened. I just wanted to tell you something." I waited, my heart still racing. "Your mother and I were talking," he said. "About you? About how hard you're working." "Okay. We want you to know that we're proud of you, not because of the money you send, not because you're studying abroad, but because you're our son, because you're trying your best." "That's enough." My throat got tight. I couldn't speak. "Beta," he continued, using the term of endearment he rarely used. "We don't need you to sacrifice everything for us. We don't need a big house or lots of money. We just need you to be happy, to be healthy. That's what matters." "Dad," my voice cracked. "If it's too hard there, you can come home. There's no shame in that. We'd rather have you here, safe and happy, than there, struggling and alone." Tears were running down my face. I was standing in the middle of the grocery store, crying while talking to my father. "I'm okay, Dad," I managed to say. "I promise." "Are you?" he asked gently. "Really?" And for the first time in months, I actually thought about the question. Was I okay? "I will be," I said, and I meant it. After that call, something changed in me. I realized I'd been carrying this weight that my parents never asked me to carry. They didn't send me abroad so I could work myself to death. They didn't sacrifice for me so I could be miserable. They did it because they loved me, because they wanted me to have opportunities. But opportunity doesn't mean anything if you're too broken to enjoy it. I started taking better care of myself. I cut back my work hours a little. I reached out to the university's counseling services and started talking to someone about what happened. I even made some friends, real friends, who I could be honest with. I told them about the robbery, about the pressure I felt, about how hard everything was. And they didn't judge me, they just listened. And somehow, that helped. I'm still in Australia. I'm still working and studying, but I'm doing it differently now. I video call my parents every week still, but now I tell them more of the truth. Not everything, I don't want to worry them too much, but more than I did before. I tell them when I'm tired, when I'm stressed, when I'm having a hard week, and they tell me it's okay, that it's normal, that I don't have to be perfect. I still haven't told them about the robbery. Maybe I never will. Some things are too heavy to share, even with the people you love most, but I have told them other things, things I never said before. Last week, at the end of our call, I said something I've never said before. I love you guys. Both of you. I know I don't say it, but I do. There was silence for a moment. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My father looked away, blinking hard. We love you too, Beta, my mother said, her voice shaking. So much. And it felt good. To say it out loud. To not just show it, but to actually say the words. That night in the liquor store changed me. It made me realize how fragile life is. How quickly everything can end. How much time we waste pretending and hiding and trying to be perfect. I thought I was being the good son by sacrificing everything. By working myself to death. By never complaining or asking for help. But the good son isn't the one who suffers in silence. The good son is the one who's honest, who takes care of himself so he can be there for his family. Who knows? That love isn't just about sacrifice. It's also about connection. I still work hard. I still want to make my parents proud. I still want to give them a better life. But now I know that the best gift I can give them is a son who's healthy, happy, and alive to spend time with them. Because that night, staring at that gun, I didn't think about money or success or achievements. I just thought about my family, about how much I'd miss them, about how much I loved them. And that's what really matters. Not the sacrifices or the success, just the love. The months following that call with my father were different. I started to see things more clearly, like I'd been living in a fog and it was finally lifting. I joined a student support group at the university. It was specifically for international students dealing with stress and anxiety. At first I was skeptical. What could sitting in a circle talking about feelings really accomplish? But it helped. It really helped. There were students from all over the world, India, China, Vietnam, Brazil, Nigeria, and all of us were carrying similar burdens. The pressure to succeed, the guilt about the money our families spent, the loneliness of being so far from home. One guy, Raj, was from Mumbai. He told us his story about working 3 jobs and sleeping 4 hours a night, about collapsing in class one day from exhaustion, about his parents flying all the way to Australia because they were so worried. They told me they'd rather I come home and work in a call center than kill myself trying to be successful, he said. They said no degree is worth their son's life. His story hit me hard, because I'd been on that same path, working myself to death, thinking that was what love looked like. Another girl, May, talked about the depression she'd struggled with, about feeling like she couldn't tell her parents because they'd sacrificed so much, about finally breaking down and admitting she needed help. My mom said something I'll never forget. May told us. She said, "I didn't raise you for 20 years just to lose you to shame and silence. That changed everything for me." Listening to their stories made me realize I wasn't alone, that what I was feeling wasn't weakness, that asking for help wasn't failure. I started being more honest in my therapy sessions too. I'd been holding back, not wanting to admit how bad things had gotten, but I finally told my therapist everything. About the robbery, yes, but also about the pressure I put on myself, about the lies I told my family, about feeling like I was drowning but couldn't ask for help. She told me something that stuck with me. You're trying to pay back a debt that doesn't exist. Your parents gave you opportunities out of love, not obligation. You don't owe them your mental health. That hit me like a punch. A debt that doesn't exist. Is that what I'd been doing? Trying to repay my parents for loving me? I started to understand that the guilt I carried wasn't really about them. It was about me, about my own expectations, about the story I'd told myself about what it meant to be a good son. My parents never asked me to work myself to death. They never asked me to lie about being okay. They never asked me to sacrifice my happiness for their pride. I'd invented those rules myself, and I was the only one who could break them. So I started making changes, real changes. I cut my work hours down to just 15 per week. The legal limit for students was 20, but I didn't need to max it out. I could afford to work less and still pay my bills. I started actually sleeping. 7, sometimes 8 hours a night. It felt like a luxury at first, almost wrong. But I woke up feeling human again, able to focus in class, able to enjoy things. I started cooking real meals, instead of living on instant noodles and energy drinks. I'd video call my mom and have her walk me through her recipes. She loved it. She'd laugh at my mistakes and give me tips. And for those moments, it felt like I was home. I even started exploring Sydney. I'd been there for over a year and had barely seen anything beyond my apartment, my jobs, and my campus. I went to the beach. I visited museums. I made friends and actually spent time with them, and slowly I started to feel like myself again. Not the person I was before the robbery, but someone new. Someone who'd been through something terrible and come out the other side. I started writing about my experiences. Not for school, just for myself. I'd write about the robbery, about my fears, about my family, about everything I was feeling. It helped me process things in a way that talking never could. One day, I showed some of my writing to my English professor. She encouraged me to submit a piece to the university's literary magazine. I was hesitant. It was so personal, so raw, but I did it. I submitted an essay about being an international student, about the pressure and the loneliness and the constant feeling of being caught between two worlds. It got published, and the response was overwhelming. Students I'd never met came up to me to say they related, that they felt the same way. That reading it made them feel less alone. That experience taught me something important. That vulnerability isn't weakness. That sharing your struggles can help others who are going through the same thing. I started thinking about my future differently too. I'd always assumed I'd graduate, get a high-paying job, work for years to pay back my parents and give them a comfortable life. But what if that wasn't the only path? What if success looked different than I thought? I started exploring different options. Maybe I'd work in Australia for a few years, but then move back home. Maybe I'd find a job that paid well enough but also gave me work-life balance. Maybe I'd pursue writing more seriously. The point was, I had choices. I didn't have to sacrifice everything for some imaginary ideal of success. One night, during our weekly video call, I finally opened up to my parents more than I ever had. "Ma, Papa," I said, "I need to tell you something." They both leaned closer to the screen, concerned. "I've been struggling here, more than I let on. It's been really hard, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father's expression became serious. "Are you okay?" My mother asked immediately. "What happened?" "I'm okay now," I said. "I'm getting help. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm taking better care of myself. But I wanted you to know that it hasn't all been easy." There was a pause. Then my father spoke. "Beta, we're your parents. You don't have to protect us from knowing when you're struggling. That's our job, to support you. Always." "I know," I said. "I just didn't want to disappoint you, after everything you've done for me." My mother shook her head, tears in her eyes. "You could never disappoint us. Never. We're proud of you for being brave enough to ask for help. That takes more strength than pretending everything is fine." "Your mother is right," my father added. "We sent you there to build a good life, not to suffer. If it's too much, you can always come home." "There's no shame in that." "I know," I said, "and I might take you up on that someday. But for now, I want to finish what I started. I'm just doing it differently now." We talked for a long time that night. About my therapy, about my support group, about the friends I'd made, about the writing I'd been doing. My parents listened without judgment. They asked questions. They told me they loved me. My father even said the words out loud, which he'd never done before. "We love you, Beta, more than you know. You're doing great. We're proud of you." Those words meant everything. Not "we're proud of your success" or "we're proud of your grades." Just "we're proud of you." Of me, as a person. Not for what I accomplished, but for who I was. After that conversation, I felt lighter. Like I'd been carrying a huge weight and finally set it down. I still haven't told them about the robbery. I probably never will. That night was traumatic, and I'm still processing it. But it doesn't define me anymore. It's just one thing that happened. One terrible night in a life that also has good days, good friends, good moments. I think about that night sometimes. About standing behind that counter with a gun pointed at my face. About thinking I'd never see my family again. And I'm grateful. Grateful that I survived. Grateful that I got another chance. Grateful that I learned what really matters before it was too late. Because some people don't get that chance. Some people go their whole lives working for some ideal of success, sacrificing everything, and never realize what they're missing until it's gone. I almost became one of those people. But that night, in the worst moment of my life, I saw clearly what mattered most. Not money, not success, not achievements or recognition or making my parents proud through my accomplishments. Just love, just connection, just being alive and being able to tell the people I care about that I love them. I'm 21 years old. I'm far from home. I'm still figuring out life. I'm still working and studying and trying to build a future. But I'm doing it differently now. I'm doing it in a way that honors not just my parents' sacrifices, but also my own well-being. In a way that recognizes that the best gift I can give them is a healthy, happy son. Because they didn't sacrifice so much just to lose me to stress and exhaustion and silence, they sacrificed because they loved me, because they wanted me to have a good life. And a good life isn't just about success. It's about balance. It's about health. It's about relationships. It's about being present and honest and connected to the people who matter. The night I thought I'd never see my parents again taught me all of that. It was the worst night of my life. But, in some ways, it was also a gift. A terrible, traumatic gift that I wouldn't wish on anyone, but a gift nonetheless, because it woke me up. It showed me what I was doing to myself. It forced me to change before I destroyed myself completely. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll stay in Australia or move back home or go somewhere else entirely. But I know this. Whatever I do, wherever I go, I'll never again take for granted the chance to tell my parents I love them. To be honest with them, to let them be part of my life, even the hard parts. Because that's what family is. Not just the celebrations and successes, but also the struggles and fears and vulnerabilities. That's what real connection looks like. And that's worth more than any achievement or accomplishment. The gun pointed at my face taught me that. In the moment when I thought I was going to die, I didn't think about my grades or my job or my future career. I thought about my family, about love, about all the things I'd never said. And now, every day I'm alive is a chance to say those things, to show that love, to be present and honest and connected. That's what being a good son really means. Not working yourself to death, not pretending everything is perfect, not sacrificing your health and happiness for some imaginary ideal. Just being honest, being present, being alive, and letting the people who love you actually know you, the real you, struggles and all. That's the lesson I learned. And it's one I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. However long or short that life may be, I'll live it honestly, connected to the people I love. Never again taking for granted the gift of one more day, one more conversation, one more chance to say what matters. The night I thought I'd never see my parents again changed everything. And I'm grateful for that change, even though the lesson was hard. Because now I'm living, really living, not just surviving or grinding or pushing through. Living. And that's what they wanted, for me all along.